Everybody hear me okay?
Hello, hello, hello.
Yep. I think mine's working.
I mean, we don't have to use, I mean, I don't mind using this at all.
Hello, hello.
I think it helps with the recording, so.
Cool. All right, welcome.
There we go. All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here.
Good morning.
Shane and Crystal.
We're gonna put you down as in having an incident.
All right. Well, everybody should have a handout that looks like this to go through what we have here today. Do you want to go through introductions or?
Let's do a quick introduction.
Okay.
It's just
All right. I'm Tim Kubrick with Labor Relations.
Kevin McCormick, Exceptional Student Education.
Allison Monblow, School Food Service.
Maggie Prieto, General Manager, School Food Service.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Joe Sanchez, the COO.
Heather Canoes, Chief Financial Officer.
Crystal Washington, General Manager.
Shane Surgical Transportation.
Robert Mann, East Compound Driver 2.
Cassandra Joseph, Royal Palms, Transportation, Bus Driver.
Sean Tyree, Cafeteria Manager.
Doris Motley, Maintenance.
Julia Reddick, Safety and Training, Transportation.
Tamika Berry, ECP.
Alex Lopez, Shop Transportation, on South Shop.
Donna Barish, Power 2.
Alondra Bell, Cafeteria Manager.
Ronald Laputte, Union Rep.
Joseph Brenner, SEIU negotiator.
Oh, everybody can see now, right?
Right.
Engineer.
Nice and bright.
Lights.
Kind of like waking up and turning the light on, right?
Exactly.
All right. Well, again, thanks to everybody for taking time out of your day to be here. We appreciate it. We're going to go through the district and union proposals and then talk about any progress we've made on these. Yep. So first, I'll get into the salary. Again, we are not discussing salary today. We are waiting for the current legislative session to close on the 11th before we ready our proposals for salary. So look forward to that in our next session.
I'm sure you're probably watching like we are, whether or not there's a budget being presented in the next 2-3 hours.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. So getting into the paraprofessionals too and early childhood professionals. Any update on our requests for posting vacancies, the language changes that we were suggesting?
Yeah, so I say from our perspective, this is for folks in the district's package. You'll see on second page, third block down or slide down.
Section 1, posting vacancies.
Section 1, posting vacancies. So one of the things that we had talked about both on the Teams or Google Meet,
right,
with our group afterwards. We want to make sure that we're not eliminating anything that would, give some preference to our existing employees to take opportunities over anyone from the outside, right? And that, that wouldn't shock you. That's any union trying to make sure that its existing employees, have a better, standing and opportunity than the unborn, so to speak. I'll say that I don't have a ton of concerns, but I still in terms of, I'm not ready to TA, but I would want to figure out process-wise, what would be the deviation away from existing practice and policy, and how could we make sure that, like I just stated, that our existing employees were made aware of opportunities, because here's the thing, it's not everybody checks their work email, has that opportunity, not everybody works near a bulletin board, so it becomes, I don't want to give in on something that potentially it's more meaningful for our existing employees than I think it is.
Okay, so on this, for the first one, it's really that we have to post it internally only for 5 days first. Where is it that where can we maybe go with that then to make sure that we're not taking anything away?
Well, I guess my first question is when you have and I recognize, we're at a giant school district that's 20,000, 22,000 people.
Yep.
So it doesn't make a lot of sense that anybody in, say, custodial or plant operations gets a notice that a teacher or superintendent position is open, right? I want to make sure that department by department, if there's going to be, or even a pre-posting, for example, like an email saying the district is about to post, there's a vacancy here, so our people can get out ahead of it, get their applications, get their resumes, whatever they need to do to make themselves, more ready to take that next step. If there's any sort of email blasts that go out, happy Friday, here are the opportunities available in food service, here are the opportunities available in transportation, here are the opportunities. If we can get some landing space around that, and obviously I say that knowing that it sounds easy for me to say, but it also requires someone to tabulate all that and get that information out, and God forbid there's something wrong, it becomes a problem. I'm just trying to figure a way that we can get the information out to our existing people in a way that's quick, possibly ahead of the game, before we're able to move on the language.
Sure. I can maybe discuss this with ERP to see if there's a notification process when jobs are posted. That I know that there is something like that. I just don't know if it's turned on, really. But even that would require someone to go in and set preferences of what they want to be notified of. So I'm trying to think of, if you're really looking for another job, you're probably going to see it. So I guess really what we're talking about are those who aren't looking but might be interested.
Those obviously the people who are like constantly on the search are going to probably log in as much as they can, a couple times a week possibly. But for those who, for example, I know this has happened in the trades. It wasn't this school district, but another one where there was no vacancies for I think it was like a HVAC tech, because the two gentlemen that started started in like 1993, and neither of them were leaving, and so the other folks just kind of that's never going to happen. Guy moved to another department because he had to take another opportunity, even though he was qualified, didn't learn about it, that it was posted and available. Then it was filled outside. So that worker who was like, damn, I've been waiting for Jim and Barry to leave, but I didn't get any notification. Now, obviously, I do recognize that you'd probably want to have something would be facilities jobs, go to facilities staff, food service, go to food service. But, if there's a process that we can make sure there's some sort of mass posting, that'd be beneficial, or even one, for example, if you did a weekly or biweekly email that included the link to any and all vacancies at the district, to basically say, hey, we're giving everybody our on the 1st of the month and on the 15th of the month, here are the vacancies as of this moment, getting it into people's hands so that they can make those decisions accordingly.
Got it. I will look into that, see where we can maybe meet you on that.
Cool.
Okay. Yes.
I just want to comment real quick on the para too. We're talking about hundreds of positions right now, right?
I know. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted you to understand the scope of what you're asking for as well.
Well, that's why, that's actually advantageous in a sense that if you've got, say, a link on the district's internal, intranet, for lack of a better word, that just lists, here are the current para positions, and obviously you fill one, it gets pulled. It's almost like a reminder, hey, here's the opportunities, because some folks who might be like, I want to work at Olympic, I don't want to go to, Santa Lucia's, or I can't even pronounce it right, excuse me, Santa Lucia's, and, but they're not necessarily looking all the time. It gives them the opportunity to say, oh, here it is, here's my opportunity, bam, I have my stuff ready. But I do recognize we're not, the last thing I want is to have a staffer every second Friday of the month, just like, I have to send 44 emails today.
Right. Okay, we'll look into that. And then anything on the notification with 5 days of the decision, I mean,
Well, we recognize that we recognize that the district has the absolute right not to fill vacancies. We understand that, right? It gets a little dicier. I think I want to have more discussion on my end. Here's where it gets a little dicier is I know there's been processes not at this school district, but others where the intent was to fill a vacancy, people start getting their things together, start getting into that pre-interview mode, and they're like, when are you going to post it? When are you going to post it? And then it doesn't get posted, and everyone's feeling like, man, I really wish you would have told us early that this was going to be eliminated because we would have not gotten all of our ducks in a row to interview and get excited about going from, say, North County to South. Hey, I live closer to there. We'll cut my commute by 30 minutes. I still would love to have some sort of notification so that we don't build false expectations on behalf of our membership. So it's true. I do recognize the administrative burden that this language creates. However, I'm also trying to figure out, is there something we can do to make sure that as soon as the district knows we're not going to fill XYZ position, it can be communicated.
got it. All right, payroll procedures, the piece about staffing, establishing a bank account.
I want to have, again, I'm not trying to just be like, we reject everything out of hand, don't even bring us anything. It's more of, I know that you guys do have relationships with some credit unions, and I do think that everybody has been forced to move to some sort of banking institution, direct deposit system. I just want to make sure that we don't have anybody left out of that, sort of the unbankable, the folks who can't get a credit union, can't get a bank account.
Sure, I understand. Next one, Article 9, Section 3 regarding summer school. The district just withdraws that request.
Okay.
We did find out that there are in very few instances, but we don't. Our interest would be to give the employees what they want in those cases. So, if it works out for them, it's a little bit more work administratively, but we're willing to do it. So we're striking that.
I had a whole spiel I don't even have to go into.
Good deal. Bus driver referral incentive. I do have a copy of that. I think we'll go through some of this first before we get to that, because I think we'll get off task a little bit. But
Sure.
I do have a draft of that we can share.
Super.
All right. Summer school, again, strike that. We're withdrawing the request that was for the regular.
Yep.
Um,
Same conversation.
Again, same thing there. And then midday activity assignments. Said you were going to discuss it with your team.
Yeah. I'll say that we wanted some clarity, and I think we have a proposal that we have a proposal similarly on this that we'll present today. We wanted to make sure, like, if you're going to have a situation, I would want to make sure that we're both clear on what, quote unquote, rejects his or her midday. Like, for example, that can't be a FMLA leave. It has to be, hey, I don't want to do this. And then here's where it gets dicey is we know that these departments are busy. We know that transportation is always going to be busy. It's just inherent in the system. I want to make sure that it's somehow recorded on a daily basis so that I don't have a worker coming to me and say, hey, they pulled my midday WTF, and I come look at it, and I've got one coordinator saying, yeah, he told me this day, and then I got a secretary saying, yeah, he told me this day, and I have to sort of pick up the puzzle on when it was bidded. It's more administrative than anything. Like, is there going to be some sort of system that an employee who is, I hereby reject my midday, it doesn't have to be so formal, but I want to basically make sure that it's clear, because I could see a whole host of problems on our end on that. And anybody on our side on transportation, weigh in on this. I don't want to be the only voice. Or not.
Crystal?
They currently reject them daily by signature, so that part is already taken care of. And I think FMLA, I think we're all on the same page there. So this would be if somebody comes in for their morning and then decides they can't do their midday, it would be those circumstances.
Oh, and obviously 10 consecutive days is going to be 10 work days, obviously.
Right.
2 full weeks.
So I think by them, proposing 10 consecutive days, it really is establishing a pattern, and and just not being willing to release that for other employees who might want it.
Yep.
I really do understand that request, and if they're documenting it, it makes sense. I think on my end that
We don't.
there is a reason.
We don't have an interest in holding up work and creating more administrative burden that also takes work away from our people who, like, look, I've been dying to do that midday.
Right.
You just happen to have 6 months of seniority on me.
Right.
Go ahead, Carrie. You got to speak. You got a microphone too.
I don't think I need a mic.
I think for the recording.
Won't be able to hear it in the recording.
For the
that's fine.
recording, for Senate record.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm Carrie Alderman, work at East Facility. So what, I know nothing has been agreed upon, but from my understanding, and reading this, it goes back to where they're saying the spare drivers will be covering the routes in the absentee of another driver, and that they should get first priority without going in rotation.
That's the next one.
Is it?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
that's a different one. This
That's
is
the one
the
over?
rejecting a bidded midday or activity.
Voluntary rejection on behalf of the worker.
Article
It's,
14,
Okay.
Section 1A.
1A? Okay. I jumped the gun.
Okay. So we want to come back with that next time? More
We want to
discussion?
come back on that. I don't think we're too far apart. But
Okay, all right.
I think we will.
I just want to make sure we cross all T's, dot all I's.
All right, spare drivers, the extra work goes to rotation.
This is a hand grenade. And I say that with all due respect. I just know that this has been a long-standing sort of discussion on our end. We can't, as in current form, the union can't accept this proposal. I do recognize, we do recognize that obviously there's a need to have spare drivers, relief drivers, right? We understand that. There is a component here. Maybe it was in the previous slide that you had posted about, like, management will basically put it up when they see fit. I'm trying to think of it. It was discretion of management. Will be posted at the discretion of management. Wasn't your last batch? Let me go to the previous one.
Let me see this.
First page? Yeah, I have that. Yeah, we want to keep talking about this. I know maybe it's in the slide itself.
No, it's yeah. I'm not sure. But we can.
It's the last page,
Last page of regular?
no, the midday, the last line of that.
Oh, of the
Oh,
previous
okay.
slide. This was dealing with rejecting your bids, though. Your bidded midday or activity assignments. So, and the reason for that language was that there might be times where even if somebody does reject it 10 days in a row, that they decide, no, we're not going to, put this out there. We're going to leave it with them. So maybe, they could keep it even if they have rejected it. It just means that just because they rejected it for 10 days doesn't mean it automatically goes out to bid for the midday activity assignments. Correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's correct. Somebody could have COVID, for example, and it's out 10 days.
Right.
We're not
Right.
gonna
So the discretion of the direct.
take circumstances.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
That could be extenuating circumstances that occurred. We're going to really take a hard look at that and make sure people are covered for those kinds of things.
Right. So that's what that had to deal with. That
Are you saying, so management's intent on that would be in scenarios where long-term medical,
Correct.
that would be it? Okay.
I wouldn't think.
We get really hesitant when something says just blanket at the discretion of management, because obviously,
We're humans too.
oh, I know, but I'm saying that could mean in the year 2026, and we don't want that.
I hear you.
So
So we could come back to this one if
we
you
might
like.
need to do that. I'll say that regarding spare drivers, and obviously my transportation folks, we definitely want to. If we're gonna make a move in that direction, it's going to take a lot, because we recognize the need to have these group of workers, but we're again trying to make sure the integrity of the routes of those who are already here is not questioned, and obviously you're creating levels of driver. We've got some hesitation with. Feel free to explain further. I mean, we're always happy for dialogue.
Well, just this past week, I had, and Chief is dealing with it as well, one school in particular where one person bidded on that midday. It's an activity. And unfortunately, that's someone that has had some issues maintaining attendance. So on days that they're not here, that activity doesn't get done. The children are suffering. The school principal is reaching out to the superintendent for us to address the issue. But I have no leeway to take that activity and give it to somebody else who would do it. So it's in cases like those, it really becomes a problem for the children in there.
Are you seeing scenarios where the regular driver, for example, misses their early shift and then comes and finishes the midday and activities? Because I think that we took care of that last time.
In this case, the person missed the entire day
Okay.
and is just not there.
And so right now you're saying that right now the department has to then put it out, notify everybody who's willing to cover this, and what's the problem with that as a process?
Let's talk about the spare drivers.
Yeah, sorry, spare drivers. Yeah.
Let's talk about this one.
Sorry, yeah, where you have, quote, extra work goes to rotation. Drivers do not want to be a spare driver because the extra work is assigned to most senior driver. Spare drivers should have a priority in selecting extra work associated with the routes that they are covering when the regular driver is absent or assigned other duties. Right now, that extra work follows a process, which has sort of been a long-standing process, is from what I'm understanding. And the district's desires to move away from that, basically giving preference to spares, which it won't shock you if we've got 700 drivers, maybe, 70 are spares?
Yeah, so this is fairly new language, actually. So this language was put in about 2 years ago. So prior to that, it was if you were a spare driver, you would carry on with the extra work. So one of the benefits of being a spare driver is getting the extra work, because as a spare driver, you come in, you have different routes every day, you have different assignments, you're going here, there, you have to know the county, so you're a more experienced driver. The only benefit to that is then getting the extra work that's associated with those routes, right? That you know that's coming. If you have no benefit, then what's the benefit for you to be kind of going all around the county? So what we've seen over the past 2 years is a reduction in our spare driver pool, which definitely does not help us when we don't have drivers assigned.
They told us they would never bid spare anymore unless we fix that language. So that's why we moved forward, because we were actually asked, please fix this. This is not right.
Go ahead, Carrie.
So, with that being said, what Mr. Shane just said, the issue came in with management, meaning staff, that's underneath him. When we voted to have seniority, seniority is supposed to come in to the person that has the most time on the job. What was happening was we had new people coming in doing the extra work, and the older people was getting overlooked. And when we complained about it, nothing was never done about it. So that's why we changed the language on the spare drivers, because you will have Mr. Robert on a route for 2 weeks while a driver is out, where if Cassandra is a spare, they didn't give her that same opportunity. And then that means she had more seniority than Mr. Robert. She was getting left out. So that's why we're saying that it has to stay in a rotation and not just be given to the spare driver, because they are spare drivers. And like I said before many of, even before Mr. Shane got here, I stated, when they came up with the spare driver position, it was to give them drivers 8 hours. It wasn't so much an extra work. It was because all the other drivers was only making 6.5, 7.25 hours a day. So they figured if they had a spare making a straight up 8 hours, that driver would help out. But it wasn't so much containing extra work.
No,
It was when Mr. Riley was here, the director, Mr. Riley, and I got the paperwork on it, where when he first laid it out for the union, stated that the spare driver will automatically get 8 hours. He didn't say nothing about extra work. But as I said again, they started abusing it at East Facility, where they would put one spare on a person route for 2 weeks, and the other spare didn't get the same opportunity. And that's where the problem came in. Because if Sandra got more time than Mr. Robert, and Mr. Robert coming in doing a midday every day, what about your most senior people? Where they getting left out? So, yeah, it's a fixed thing, but yeah.
I think
So
maybe,
can I clarify something there?
sure.
For the spare driver, the reason why they did 8 hours, we do have routes that are 6.5 hours, 7.5 hours. Can you imagine if somebody was on a 7.5 hour route and you have them sparing, then you would have to be dealing with extra time work for those employees every shift that they work extra. That is it's all about extra work. I'm sorry it wasn't communicated to the union accurately then, but because they could do extra work if they had less hours than 8 hours, the standard was to make a spare driver 8 hours, because it's more than likely if they're doing anything extra, they would go to 8 hours on all their routes. So that's why that was done.
What you were about to...
I was just going to say, maybe I don't think we're really that close on anything here, that maybe we each go back and work on maybe a process or other suggestions here.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say, I do think that, we're trying to make sure we preserve the integrity, and knowing that obviously there are transportation directors before you, they made decisions. I can't speak to what they said. Obviously, the contract is the contract. If the intent of the district, and it sounds like from what, how the proposal reads and how you're explaining it, is to figure out a way to incentivize people to become spare drivers. That sounds like the meat and potatoes behind it. You straight up said it. That maybe there's another way we do that without going back from what we had already negotiated just a couple years ago. Now, maybe that's impossible, but I think it's possible.
Okay.
Thanks, Kerry.
All right. Getting into the supervisory, again, it's the job posting and selection, same piece that you've seen. Article 10, Section 2, food service manager supplements. This MOU, I know I believe it's still in the process of being executed on our end, but it is in process. So the next section is really just the food service manager supplements, to add that language for the per meal section as well.
Yeah, just basically going, 10.2 would be both sections of 10.2, both slides on 10.2, what we had already agreed to with the MOU, and then that second is just the reference, same deal. There's no new language.
Right, no,
Okay, yeah.
this is the same thing. So are we,
Executed, yeah.
okay.
Because I think the concern was that you had somebody working in a higher classification to fulfill a need. We didn't want to leave them out, and the union has no desire to do that, so.
Got it. All right. The next Article 13, tool allowance. So this is just correcting the issue that was that it was not included in the previous supervisory bargaining agreement.
Yep. So acceptance, would that? Sorry, I'll let you speak.
All right.
I'm sorry, are you in acceptance of our proposal whole cloth, or is it a counter? I have to look at
So
it.
this is different than what this was our proposal. This was because you remember that there was an issue where supervisory employees were not, the tool allowance was not part of their agreement, and we found those emails that said it was supposed to have been in there. So this is first establishing that this language belongs in the agreement, because it currently isn't. But even as it's referenced in the regular agreement, it addresses the employees who are covered in the supervisory agreement. So it's really just, I think, an error.
Making consistency between the two units.
Well, in my opinion, it's really something that belonged in there, was left out by mistake, and we're first putting it back. Then we'll get to what your proposals are. In terms of the increases.
Yeah. So it's agreement on rectifying the clear workers that are supposed to be in one unit to another, and the intent behind to pay it was
right
to remedy.
that there is a tool allowance for the supervisory covered contracts, because this year there were 12 or 14
About 12.
who wouldn't have received it otherwise.
Yep.
But we worked with you on that and made sure that they got paid.
Yep. Appreciate that.
All right. So getting into the progress made on some of the proposals that you brought. So the retention supplements and salary, we don't have an update as we mentioned earlier. For sick leave, increasing from 4 to 5 days, the district's position is maintain current language, as well as it is for the annual leave to Bencor.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Regarding, and I know I only say the Bencor idea because it was sort of a mutual, like when we brought this up, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago, it stemmed out of a mutual desire on behalf of the union and the employer to say, hey, we realize people hit their max cap, and they don't always, and I think the clearest example is going to be your fleet mechanics who have a lot of work during the summer to get everything tip-top ready, and they realize they have to make a decision whether or not to take off time or lose it, but they're avoiding doing so because they don't want their fellow workers to basically say, we know we have this work, enjoy the work, I'm out for 2 weeks, even though I really don't want to take it. And obviously this is more of a conversation of, is the concern or the rejection on the part of the district because Bencor is not the appropriate place where we would place those allotted hours, or is it just a rejection of the union's proposal in a sense that the district is saying it's your vacation time, take it or lose it?
Ultimately, the second, not Bencor related,
Gotcha.
but in some discussions we've had. So really, it's just rejection of the and changing the process there.
Gotcha. Okay. I want to be clear because I know that for our folks, they're going to call me and I'll be like, look, man, take your vacation. Like, No one's trying to put anybody out. No one wants to make your colleagues work harder. However, given the choice of forfeiting benefits or not, I got to advise you to take the time. Also, the union wants people to take their time. Thanks for clarity.
Sure. Paraprofessional 2 and ECPs, the working out of classification. So first, in the last session, we did discuss that paraprofessionals were not eligible for this role based on the grant requirements. There's still some work to be done here. There have been some new requirements by the state in terms of additional requirements. I don't have them here with me, but is something I just got actually yesterday and this morning. So one had to do with limiting the number of hours that they're allowed to work in this role. But we're not
Per day or per year or both?
per year.
Per year.
Per the grant. However, we're working with Ms. Steele and her team on this to try to find ways to do it, because their position isn't that we don't want to pay them, and if a position's not filled, it's not the fault of the employee. So we're looking at different ways that we can maybe approach this. There's these new requirements are as new as like yesterday and maybe today. So.
No, I mean, we have Head Start units across the state, so HHS requirements, DCF, everything that goes, number one, it takes a long time. Number two, it's pretty strict. It's pretty clear, and as it should be. We're dealing with, small kids and federal grants. It sounds like what you're telling me is the district is interested in figuring out a way to do it, but based off of the union's proposal, it might not be permissible under the way the grant requirements currently read. Would that be a fair assessment?
In a way, yes. But that we're looking at how we can word it so that we can allow it to happen. We're in agreement that we would like to pay them, right? It's just we have to find a way that in doing so, we're not violating any, state statutes or the grant.
You don't look good in handcuffs. We don't want to see you in handcuffs.
So we're working on it, and by next session, hopefully we have some, something that maybe we could agree on.
So from my side, do folks get that on the ECP working out, Ms. Berry? Yeah.
Yes, I get it.
Okay. Great. For the regular attendance, eliminating B and C, we don't have any update on that.
Okay.
Attendance incentive, extenuating circumstances. So we discussed this last time. Our stance is to maintain current language. Attendance, selecting routes when. In our last session, you had mentioned that you were going to discuss this with your team and come back.
We have a proposal on that today.
Okay.
I know that there's some language, and I think part of it is having a unit of 45, 50-year history of bargaining on behalf of bus drivers, and bus attendants were more of a later in the game addition, so you don't have the same requirements. We're trying to basically mirror those, recognizing that there are going to be some logistical issues there. We're trying to write the smartest thing that makes sense for both bus attendants and possibly for drivers who have to transport them.
Okay. So I'll try to get through these a little quickly, since I know you have some of your proposals. Additional assignments of the $50 run, we just don't have an update on it at this time.
Budget-wise.
And then the personal leave, district maintain current language regarding the denial of leave. We are still having some discussions about, questioning why they're taking their personal leave. And I know we discussed this last time.
Yep.
In that whenever it is maybe discussed I guess I shouldn't say whenever, but there is a possibility that it might be asked just to not to whether or not they'll deny it or not to use for those purposes. So, but we'll have further discussion about that issue.
I have a question, Julie.
Use the mic.
I have a question. This is to Mr. Shane and Crystal. On our check stub, when we get paid, it states sick time and it says personal time. Okay, so when we take personal time, it comes out of our sick time. So I'm trying to, I'm not understanding, because that was just like when I started working here, we did bereavement. But the 3 bereavement days came out of our sick time, which now it don't, because the law states that we are entitled to bereavement days. So I'm trying to separate what your personal time comes, and it don't come out your sick time.
So as best as I can explain it, you accrue sick time, and the district will allow you, based on the total number of sick hours that you have, how many of those hours you could use as personal leave if you need to have something personal occur.
We can, and in the next session, if you'd like, or even before that, I could email that to the groups to clarify how that's determined.
Okay.
Make sure we get it from the team that's responsible for that.
You mean the accrual or the?
So on the paycheck, it says basically that you have this many hours. This is how many hours of those that are eligible for personal time.
Okay, like mine say I have 48 hours personal, right? Then over on the other side, I have like 300 and some sick time. So if I decide to take personal, like if I say I'm gonna take a personal day, so my personal day should come out that 48 over here, or is it gonna come out of my 300 and something over here?
48 is part of this.
48 is still a part. It's just telling you that you could use up to 48 hours off your 300 hours that you have.
It's on my list. Okay.
When you go back over,
And
we can
I
sit
could,
down and go through
like I said, I think
I'll sit with you and go through it.
for the purposes of time today, because we are limited and I want to make sure we have some time to get through it, I could send some clarification to you, okay? The next one, salary compression, we do not have an update at this time on that. School food service, your request was to add more 6-hour food service positions. School food service is currently monitoring this. They have been. They do this, evaluate their program needs annually, and when needed, they do convert positions based on the demand. However, our concern with this request is that there's no guarantee that those needs will be maintained year to year. So,
And we get that, because obviously the number of meals you're going to make dictates how much work is needed. One of the things that I've been kind of playing with in my mind is knowing that we've got mostly, you guys only have you have a limited ability to just create 6-hour or 8-hour positions in food service, right? But you have, I say you, I mean every school district in America has this issue right now of the difficulty to find and retain people, but we are also trying to marry the fact that you have other duties that may or may not be in food service, that may or be in other departments at the school or nearby. And I don't want to have a situation where somebody has to walk a mile to go work another 4 hours. But if we're trying to think of creative ways that can allow for sort of a dual job function, where somebody might have a 4-hour shift of school food service and then a 4-hour shift of some other type of work in the district. Now, I'd say in our bargaining unit, but maybe that's another conversation. We're trying to figure that out, because what it could do is give you, rather than having this sort of ongoing, constant interviewing and recruiting and posting, you'd have a little bit more continuity in being able to retain people. Obviously, they'd be benefits eligible and more likely to stick around than how the system is currently set up. And no fault of the school food service program. It's more of, it's a sort of a structural issue that can we figure out?
Yes, thank you. And actually, we have done that in the past. We have some employees right now that are doing that exact thing. We even created a marketing card that we were sending out to all of our employees that are in the 4 and 5-hour category, and with transportation and maintenance and plant operations, where we could give that card out to all of those employees to see if there was any opportunity for them to combine those jobs. So we definitely would love to do that. It's already happening.
Super. Will it be, here's, I guess, if it's happening, are those folks, and I guess the real question is, love it, want to have more of it, but are those same workers, is the district a year later saying, oh, this worker worked 1,700 hours this year, triggering them to go into a different benefit status? Or is that more of a lag?
I believe it's happening right away.
Okay.
If they're a 4-hour employee over here and they're a 4-hour over here, that combines to make the 8, and now they're a benefited employee.
Okay, and there's no lag on that. I had heard otherwise. Okay.
No, I don't believe so.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. We have no update on the pay comparison tool for bus drivers that was requested. The leave before after holiday, the district's position is to maintain current language. And temporary duty to a higher classification going from 10 days to 5 days, again, maintain current language is our position on those.
Yeah, we'll keep talking about our end. I know that the leave before and after a holiday, we understand. I mean, I understand the intent of it is the district doesn't want to create 4-day weekends, right? And then other structural problems that has, the day after Labor Day, right? Or other holidays. But I know that this wasn't always a provision that was in the contract. And especially if folks are taking it not on a sick basis, more of like, hey, I've scheduled to do something, pre-approval usage of that time. Obviously sick, and here's the hard part too, people do get sick, so you don't want to harm them.
You don't.
Well, I know harm them meaning you're going to be an incident, I'm either writing you up or giving you a counseling for usage of time.
So this is related to requesting personal leave, though, right?
If they're sick, they're sick.
It's basically asking to extend, let's say you have a week off for spring break, and I understand if it's not paid, but to go 1 day further and just have, even more days off or something like that. So it's related to personal.
It's blacking out. It's basically putting blackout dates around holidays, which, from our perspective, our employees have earned, and they want to utilize just like as anyone else could in the district. Obviously, you have to maintain a minimal level of staffing, but there's got to be a workaround. Or, for example, is there scenarios in which, say what?
We do allow, if we're staffed and people say they need this time off, it's done.
I think there are occasions where, it is allowed, right? If the supervisor chooses to do so.
Yes, if we have this.
However, it's just, they also need the right to say no, because we can't conduct our operations if all of these people take off these days. So
how do you do it? I mean, obviously, I'm envisioning a world of full staff in transportation, which probably has existed maybe 2 years out of the past 25. But is it done like first come, first serve?
That's exactly it.
Yep.
So,
Go ahead.
under normal operations, outside of holidays, we have a roster that they go through, and they know how many people can be off every day to maintain operations, accounting for those who are going to be sick. So under normal operations, if we're fully staffed, they have a number that they can say, this is my number that I can have off. It's just because in this environment, it puts extra burden on those who are here. And so that's what we're trying to avoid.
Okay.
all right. These are your, all right, the next one is the regular and supervisory requested a tools allowance increase to $600, allowing replacement allowance of $500 per tool to employees in the regular CBA, and adding transportation helpers. So we've had some discussions on this, and we will be prepared to bring our recommendation in the next session.
Okay.
In terms of the ASE certifications, requesting to add 30 cents per hour per certificate for a total of $4.50 per hour, for all 15 ASE tests. Our preference, if we are going to be looking at this and making any changes, would be to have a fixed supplement as opposed to an hourly rate based on the amount of administrative oversight it would take for the hourly method.
I will say, and I don't know if I was able to talk about it at our last session, but this mirrors what is done in the Miami-Dade Miami-Dade
Right.
schools. I don't know if there's an administrative practice that they're able to do that might be something we could look at here. I know that it would be, for just looking at the proposal, it's more meaningful for someone to want to maintain those, either both maintain them and get more of them if it's something that's going to affect their base wage rate, and they're going to be more likely to go about keeping them, getting more. You'll probably have the ability to attract candidates in a way that you can't right now. So obviously, I do hear you as far as there's an administrative component to it, but I do know that, just 40 miles south of here, another school district, not to say everyone's comparable on everything, is able to do that.
Okay, we'll have further conversation about it and bring an update on our next session.
Cool.
All right. And then food service managers assigned to an additional location to receive 50% of their base salary during the duration of that assignment. We do have a proposal that was drafted just for your review. So
Super. I think you had that one and the bus driver incentive referral.
the bus driver referral program. Yep.
All right.
So
Let's
I don't think we have a whole lot of time, but I know you want to. Do you have something you want to bring forward on your proposals?
I would like to see what you have,
Okay.
in a sense that we've got additional proposals, some of which we can kind of quick go over, submit to the district. You're going to say, thank you, let's take a look at it. Thank you, let's take a look at it, as
Right.
I would in your position. But I'm excited to see what you guys have.
Okay. Well, it's making its way around, so.
Come on, quit the slow rolling us.
No, I'm going to keep one at a time so we're focused. Try to focus on one, right? Putting my teacher hat back on, not.
I think Mark Mitchell has been in every bargaining session I've ever been in a part of with Palm Beach Schools, going back to 2010.
Yep.
It's like a book.
Bargaining champ.
Yeah, it's like a little ribbon.
All right. So what you see here is the dual manager supplement. So I'm going to let Ms. Monbleu talk about this.
Okay.
Since she drafted it.
Absolutely. So what we would like to propose is that, in certain circumstances, we have a school food service manager that is assisting with overseeing not only their school, but another school for a temporary amount of time. So we would like to provide supplements for that. So we've said what the criteria would be in order to make that happen. So it would be available where the manager position is vacant at the school. And this is only available for the regular duty days. So if we roll into the summer, this wouldn't be available. But on completion of the current month, whatever month they're in, the supplement would be calculated, and we would calculate on two different criteria here. So they would per meal supplement that the manager is already receiving for their school. We would calculate the additional per meal supplement for the school that they are covering based on the amount of days that they're covering. So if they covered half the days during the month, we would look at the per meal average supplement, and then they would get half that added to their current school. And then additionally, we would look at the dual manager. They would receive 50% of their starting salary base pay while they're operating as that dual manager. So the manager, I gave an example here, their starting salary is $18.76 per hour. Half of that would be $9.38 per hour. And then if they worked 40 hours per week, they would get the $375.20 additional per week. That would be approximately $1,500 a month if they were there for the entire month.
Okay.
And just a little bit of more information down below, that the supplement would be discontinued upon the last day of dual management, and that the dual manager is selected by the director or designee based on performance, ability, location, programs at the current school, and also programs at the covering school. If performance of the dual manager is not acceptable, or the dual manager position has been deemed operationally inefficient, school food service director may change who is dual managing or discontinue the dual management of the school. And then dual management temporary coverage is defined as the coverage of a second school and the temporary absence of a permanent school food service manager. So the top part was a vacant position, but we also understand that there are times when we have somebody filling in for a short amount of time at a school that's actually not vacant. Maybe somebody's out for 2 weeks for surgery or something.
FMLA type deal, yeah.
Yeah. So in this case, school food service managers or the employees who are working in the capacity of a school food service manager temporarily assigned to a school where the manager position is occupied will not be eligible for the 50% supplement. However, they will be eligible for that first per meal supplement. And that would be applied to the percentage of days worked. So they would be adding that ADP that I explained in the first example up top. That would be added to their pay. And they would also be all eligible for travel reimbursement as they're driving, if they're driving their own vehicle to and from that other school.
Yeah, question?
Hi, I have a question. Will this be for my school situation? Because this will make, coming into the new school year will make the second time because I ran Lincoln and Washington Elementary for 2 years, and then next year it will be Lincoln and Grove Park Elementary. So this is one of the big reasons, and then plus me being out for 6 months last year, and I had managers running my school. That's why I think that this supplement is good, but I honestly, too, wanted to know because of my situation at my school being that it can house 2 schools, and I will be running 2 schools. So that's my question. Will this pertain particularly to me?
I guess the question would be, is there a minimum amount of meals has to be served?
At the top, we did say the base schools are defined by school food service director as usually having an average daily participation of more than 500 meals. And they order, receive, and store food on site. Okay. So this applies to the base school. And so in your situation, if the second school has about 500 meals and you're ordering, receiving, storing those products, then yes, you would be eligible for that additional dual management.
So I'm going to let everybody know my ignorance on knowing how many school meals are provided each day. So would you say that 500 meals is your average elementary school, and knowing elementaries are the smallest?
Yeah, I would say that or higher. Some of them no, but I mean, you can chime in, but usually we're serving at least 500 meals. And what we're trying to avoid is those schools that are serving 25, 50, where the manager is going over and there's a satellite program that it doesn't warrant the full 50% of the pay.
Is it because I'm trying to figure out the rationale in the district's eyes that the workload isn't the same as, almost like 2 full-time positions, right? This is to encompass 2 full-time positions, and that in those instances of a satellite that the expected workload would be significantly less because of that.
Absolutely, yes.
Any more questions you have on? Obviously, we'll talk about it as a team.
Maybe the meals 500 is a little bit high because in my particular area, especially the elementary schools, most of the schools are like 300, 350 as far as serving. And then actually the number of students enrolled in the school is higher than the amount that's served. 500 is the base, but most of the schools in my area that are elementary are at least under the 500 with serving, except maybe one, West Riviera. They've always been 500 or more, but
We'll check into it, but this is meal equivalents, so I'm not just looking at lunch. I'm looking at breakfast, lunch, snacks, suppers, all of that rolled together. So if you're really not served, we'll check into it. But it's everything. It's not just looking at the meals. It's all those meal equivalents.
yes, okay.
Would breakfast, like for example, meal equivalents, I would assume breakfast and lunch are seen as meals, and snack would be a portion of a meal equivalent, or?
Yeah, it's broken down in the contract. Let me see what page it's on.
This is more for my Fitness Pal entry later. I can put my meal equivalents in later.
Yeah, let me find it. It's in here. Yeah. I just don't want to quote it incorrectly. Oh. Thank you. Yes. So a breakfast is one. If you have a charter school or alternative breakfast, that's 1.25. A standard lunch, which is student, staff, and adults, is 1. Charter alternative for student, staff, and adults is 1.25. Snacks, which is the after-school snack program, fresh fruits and vegetable program, and extended day is 0.33. A supper is 1. Head Start, voluntary pre-K, or ESE unitized breakfast and or lunch is 1.25. And then you also get all your a la carte divided by $3.
Divided by $3, meaning
If
every
you
$3
sell-
counts as a meal?
Yes.
Gotcha. No, I mean, first off, I appreciate this is clearly a lot of work gone into this from the district's perspective. We're going to talk about it on our end, but we appreciate the counter.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right, so next we do have the bus driver referral program, if you'd like to review that. So start by making it very clear that this is still in draft form. So this is, not a finished product. We're looking forward to getting your input on it.
You can do it.
I haven't said much today.
All right. So this idea was brought by Mr. Sanchez as a way to hopefully get some more bus drivers, and a team of people have been working on trying to make sure that this fits. This will accomplish the goal that we intend for it. But I'll allow Mr. Sanchez to weigh in on it.
Okay. Actually, I won't take credit for it. Actually, FIFA kind of brought this up. I think she's seen this at another school district, so I want to give her proper credit for it. So obviously, this is the intent is to offer $500 as a bonus for just general for one employee to recognize or to refer a new employee to work with us. So just to get into a little bit more of the details, we're specifically pointing this out as for bus drivers, because that's where we have a big shortage of, and I understand from a previous meeting that there was some interest in doing this with other positions, but this right now we're focused on the bus drivers. So any employee would be eligible for this, with the exception of employees who their job is to to recruit people, so we don't want, this is not necessarily an incentive for HR to do their job, right? So we took that out, as well as for any directors or managers and that they're associated with that group. So to be moving down to referral bonus policy, and to be eligible, what's necessary to be eligible, that the employee has to not be a current employee or have been employed with the district for the past 90 days. So we often want to recruit back employees to come back to work for us, but so we don't want to discourage the opportunity for somebody who's been out for more than 90 days to come back. If they want to come back, then great. Somebody can talk them into it. I'll give them a bonus too. All right. The referred employee must be an active employee at the time of submission, so that's pretty obvious. Referred employee and bus driver must be active employees at the time the referral bonus is paid out. That's bullet number 3. You must complete the employee referral form located in within the district website. The applicant needs to list you or list the person as their referring source. So I understand that on our website, you can, when a new applicant applies to work with us, they can identify an individual who referred them so that we can have a record. And it's not that this person claims that they referred this individual. It's actually both parties agree that this referral was made. Next bullet, referred applicant cannot be a current, permanent, or temporary employees holding the same job which they're currently being referred. So, we can't. There's situations where we have temps. Doesn't really happen so much in transportation, but happens in other positions where we have temps. We don't want those persons necessarily to receive the bonus.
Because they're already in the system, is what you're saying?
They could be employed by a temp agency, but obviously they're sitting right there doing the same job. It's not really. I mean, we could talk about that, but that wasn't the intent for that position to be eligible. The bonus cannot be split between parties. The applicant would be required to identify eligible employee who initially referred them. The applicant must accept and complete 3 consecutive months of employment. So day 1 is the first day of the bus driver training. So we just made that clear, is that they don't have to wait, go through the training, and then start the 90-day process. All right. Deferred applicant must not have undergone any disciplinary action, and that that's in writing or something like that. It's not just somebody disagrees with somebody. And have a question about that one?
Yeah, I just want to make sure it's not ever, because we've got 25-year employees.
Oh.
I would hate to. You got a written reprimand in 1997.
This is for the applicant.
Oh, my bad.
The person
Excuse me.
hired.
For that 90-day
So in
period?
those first 90 days.
Gotcha, during the 90. Yeah,
you
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, referral bonuses are awarded at the discretion of the Chief of Human Resources Officer or does he have final approval authority. Any disputes concerning the administration of this program will be responsible to the Chief of Human Resources. So this is details. So eligible referrers will receive payment based on the following guidelines. Each successful referral will receive $500 minus standard deductions. Unfortunately, that comes up a lot. What is standard deductions? That's taxes, Social Security and stuff. There are no limits to the number of people that can be referred. However, employees are limited to a maximum of $5,000 per calendar year. So you can refer 10 people, and each time you'll get $500. All right. Number 3, once you have submitted a referral, you receive a confirmation of receipt email. This is details. Payment will be made using the following schedule. It's on the back page. Applicant meets all requirements during January through June. Referral bonus will be issued in July. And then if the applicant meets all requirements in July through December, they will be paid in January. So, I mean, we could, this is a question to ourselves. Could we create an email address to us?
So we still have some questions on our end of what, we're still working through this. But, we wanted to bring it forward because we did mention in our last session that we're doing this in an effort to, get more bus drivers and also help relieve some of the existing bus drivers who have to do extra duty because of, the lack of staff available. So
Yeah, we established a task force for our bus driver shortage, right? And the research we found is that the best source for bus drivers is other bus drivers.
Oh, yeah.
So, we want to reward them for doing that. So.
I have a question.
Yeah, feel free. I've got some questions too, but go for it.
I apologize, Joy.
Go for it, Julia.
I have to say is I'm looking at the effective date for this, so it is effective as of January the 15th, correct?
Well, no.
still in draft,
Actually, we'd like to update that to make it effective the date that we agreed to it. So
It's not an effective date yet.
it's not an effective
No, it's
date.
not.
I don't. What I don't want to discourage is if you got somebody that you know who could be a bus driver, let me know now. So I don't want to discourage that, but yeah, we need to work out the effective date. We don't like retroactive things too much.
Quick question. You kind of hit the nail on the head as far as bus drivers are the best recruiters of bus drivers. I can contemplate a scenario in which a bus driver convinces another district employee to transfer out of their current position into a bus driver position. Now, recognize, and it's a little dicey.
Exactly. It's fine for them.
Well, I know.
That'd be fine for them or them.
I know.
Right.
Well, I'm just thinking of, obviously, it's triage. Like, where do you need the most people at the important time? But I'm thinking of a scenario where, like, well, not even just another department, but if I'm a driver and I can convince my attendant, hey, you know how this works. Come on, get your CD out. Come on, let's do this.
That's what we want.
We want that situation.
That's eligible.
And that would be eligible. Okay, sure. Because the first referral bonus policy would carve that out, so I want to make sure.
Right.
Yeah, the process for drivers, not for the district.
Gotcha.
Maybe the first.
Why the 5,000? We're trying to create a kingpin of, like, if I can recruit 11 people rather than 10. I understand you got to have some sort of cost containment, but.
Well, I think with anything that you get into first, though, you also want to make sure you've thought through. We have a lot of different, conditions here, right? Because until you actually get into it and start seeing it, to help mitigate any issues of abuse or a loophole that you maybe didn't consider, we don't want to make a payment to somebody of $100,000 for being a recruiter, right?
No, understood. So we'll make it 100,000.
Yeah.
Any other questions from my folks as far as this is concerned? Go ahead, Lehman.
With bullet point that states the referred applicant must not have undergone any disciplinary action. My question is, so if, let's say you do bring in an applicant or you refer someone, they're going through the process within their 90 days, they get a verbal write-up for not coming to work or missing too many days. They're not going to get fired, but they miss, they just get that verbal. So will I not get my bonus because that person got a write-up? That's what I'm trying to understand.
That's what it currently says, yes. Yeah.
So my bonus is based off of that person.
Keeping that guy straight.
You gotta keep that guy straight. You gotta keep that guy straight.
Call him every morning, say, you need to get your butt up and come to work.
It's a quality.
You're messing with my money.
It's quality.
So it's like a check and balance system.
We're looking for quality applicants, right? And so,
Positive peer pressure.
yeah.
I have a question. Is that verbal or written reprimands what you're saying? Because you can verbally tell somebody, you're running a little late, but they're not written up. How does that work?
Verbal is a written. It's a verbal is a written document.
Oh. So we could say, we could make it clear for us, somebody.
Yeah, I just would I would want to make it consistent with Article 17. Discipline.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
We can look into that.
That's right.
And Joey, did I understand? Did you say something about attempt? Like, if a person is a temp and they are working in that position, they wouldn't be eligible for the bonus?
That's the current language, correct.
Okay, so if I come in from a temp agency and I'm driving the school bus, and I done drove the school bus for,
We don't have that. We don't have temp drivers.
what, we have temp bus attendants?
Nope.
We had them at one time.
Not anymore.
Probably food service more
We,
than
Not anymore.
at one point, yes, okay,
Yeah, we
but not
did have
anymore.
that, But not anymore.
Oh, so you're not gonna do that anymore?
No.
Okay, gotcha, okay. Close, okay.
I have a question.
We did.
Is for the ECPs, the new requirements that have come up, is it referring to the language literacy requirements? Is that what they're talking about?
I didn't understand the question. You understand her question?
Sorry, I'm sorry. I get
Oh. It was a question for
On the news.
MJ?
yes.
Yes, the new literacy requirements for the VPK contract are part of what we're having to look at.
Okay, so with that being said, currently it's in progress. So as of April, when the last third part is done, I can speak poorly for myself. I will have that. So when would this currently go in effect?
it'd be upon ratification of the agreement, whatever we come up with.
Okay, so with that too, ECPs that are currently doing the work now, so I can go back and report out correctly. There's nothing in place right now for ECPs that are working as a certified teacher in that working out of the classification.
I'd have to, I can't speak to it without doing some research on that. I'd have to look into it.
Okay, because there are some currently that are working in that position, me being one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just wondering, is there anything presently in place now for ones that are working in that, working out of classification position?
There's nothing currently in place.
There's nothing in place right now?
Now there is, both parties could agree that whatever we come up with can get retroactive application, but, if the both parties agree that, but that's correct. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
We will think about it. Yeah, we'll my only thought on that is that it could be a little difficult to go back in time with some of that. So we'll discuss it. And Ms. Bonblue has an update on the food service dual manager supplement. Cool.
There we go. I think based on that conversation, I would like to change what the definition of a base school is. Base schools are defined by the school food service director as a school where there is a manager position regularly budgeted at the school. When we did our research, there were actually only 14 schools that are under the 500, so we might as well just include everybody and make it clear. So you want me to read that off again?
This is in the top.
Okay, so in the
paragraph.
top, where I said base schools are defined by school food service director, we're going to be striking and usually have the ADP of more than 500 meals in order, receive, and store food on the site. We'll strike that. And we'll add in as a school where there is a manager position regularly budgeted at the school.
Meaning you're filling a vacancy.
Exactly, because in some cases, we don't have a manager at the school anyways, because like I said, they're only serving 50 meals or 100 meals. So that will cover all managers, regardless of if they're covering different schools. And then just as we pulled it up, so for Lincoln, average daily participation is 582, and then I think you're curious about Grove Park. Currently, that is 846. And that would qualify. There's a vacant manager in your situation where you're asking 2 managers, but one is now vacated because you're filling in for both. Even though they're on the same location, you're ordering for 2. You're serving two separate paperwork, 2 separate claims, all of that.
So it's like triple criteria met in those instances
Triple, okay.
for Ms. Bell's meeting.
Very unique situation, but it does qualify.
Go ahead.
And I said it before, but I just wanted to add the fact that this is the first time we've ever been in a situation like this with the pandemic, and what happened last year and this year, and with all the managers that you did recognize at our in-service that did dual managing. Again, I'm saying that's why I think this new supplement would be good for situations like this that we've been in almost for 2 years now. So I'm just thanking you for looking at this and taking it into consideration.
Thank you. Great recommendation.
I think it was a mutual agreement in that fashion. All right, I know we're time constrained. I'm going to do the lightning round of 3 different bargaining units proposals. Lucky for you guys that there's not too many of them, and obviously we'll be talking money hopefully soon. I know you've been teasing a presentation that we're hopefully about to get some better news than rumored a couple weeks ago. But sorry, go ahead. I can't hear you. Go ahead. Ask the question.
Okay, excuse me. I want to go back to the paras a minute.
Okay.
On Article 9, Section 3. Okay. There are many of us that I know that do work in the summer. And we do work with students that can be very challenging. And there are times, not because we want to take off in the summer, is because possibly someone has gotten hurt. Someone could get COVID.
Is this about the summer sick time?
Yeah.
They've withdrawn it.
Well, I'd like them to unwithdraw it and go back and talk about it.
No. They've withdrawn their proposal to eliminate.
Okay.
Gotcha. I just want to make sure. I think we're good.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay. Don't give them any reason. Okay. All right. So I'm going to pass out 3 different proposals. You'll see up top. They're referenced. Here is your, one by one. ECP, just one to everybody. And then Alondra, you follow him and do supervisory. Actually, here. I'll just do it this way. Go that way with supervisory, and then regular.
I'm hungry.
In the interest of time, I do know we have about 5 minutes, and I know other people do have some previous engagements, so I will have to.
We'll go lightning.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So obviously you're going to have 3 documents in front of you. Some of these proposals are going to overlap. I'm not going to belabor them in each one. In the Article 5 of each of the contracts, it's 5.6 in the regular and supervisory, and 5.3 in the ECP para. We just wanted to clean up our dues deduction language. I know some of this is, historical. It's been like a 40-year language. On the advice of some of our counsel, we just wanted to make it consistent with applicable Florida public employee law. Obviously, still recognizes the rights and responsibilities of the union as it pertains to the law. Happy to have further discussion around it. But really, it's clean up. In the article for regular and for supervisory, regular, we have a hazardous duty pay, which is again mirroring a similar school district down south. About adding some pay provisions for workers who are going to be exposed to hazardous duties as defined here. Heights, falling from ladders, welding, sanding. Any of these sort of being exposed to hazardous chemicals and/or risks that are not already encompassed. We just wanted to, keep up with the Joneses in terms of allowing for some hazardous duty pay for those workers.
It's different.
Going back to Article 11, Section 2 in your supervisory and 2 in your regular, and Article 11, Section 7 of overtime, 2 different proposals. For regular and supervisory, it just adds the clause that says, quote, overtime opportunities once distributed but not accepted by workers in that classification may be offered to workers outside the job classification to employees who are qualified to perform such tasks. Basically, we want to keep the integrity of seniority and rotational seniority especially, but if those workers are not willing to accept that work, they just say, hey, I can't do it, I've got other commitments. So long as that, and then some of this might be already being performed in some departments, but in those instances in which I don't want to get into a scenario where management wants to give out overtime opportunities, they give it out to, say, for example, painting would be a perfect example. They give it out to all the painters, all of the painters reject it, and there's painting work that needs to be done by the district and can be offered to somebody who's qualified to do it, but the district is not offering it to other folks not in that classification, but who could do it. Now, painters should get priority. We recognize it's a core duty, but if none of them want to do it, then we want it to be offered to anyone else.
Understand.
And in Article 11, Section 7, overtime for the ECP paras, we had some conversation around comp time and overtime. We want to make clear the contract already, references that all approved work over 40 should be paid overtime rate, but there's been some conversation amongst folks because some ECPs and paras are not being clear that it's their option in order to accept payment rather than they're not being forced into accepting comp time. And then in Article 20 of the ECP paras, Article 22, the supervisory, Article 11, Section 3, just mirrors our 10 to 5 in the working out at temporary duty in a higher class. Same proposal, we just hadn't put it in for supervisory. Then in Article 22 of supervisory, 20 of ECP para, and I believe 20 of your, let me get back to the transportation accordingly, 24 of your regular. We saw the teachers' language around, the PBCTA's language around quarantine leave, and we said what's good for the teachers should be good for the other personnel around the district and basically mirrored that language for those workers. It's actually verbatim. Then going back to your regular contract, I think both of us talked about bus attendance bidding. There are some language discrepancies. The union struck out B, C, and D, and E of the current contract and added some similar language around maintaining the integrity of the routes for a bus attendant, meaning that, long story short, if they have a midday or extra duty work, midday activity route, that they keep that work and they're not going to be subject to whatever the driver assigned to it does. They want to keep the integrity of seniority for those attendants. In the more nuanced / aspirational out there proposals the union has, I say out there meaning something we think could be done, but obviously the district's going to likely have some pause on, will be your Article 14, Section 17, driver shortage relief. I think a big component of our discussion here today has been figuring out how do we get more people driving and how do we utilize the people that we can at the district to make sure that that core function is being performed. So we were seeking basically a way that right now we know that there is an absence of bus drivers. If people call out, obviously it makes it even worse, but we've got vacancies. We know that there are instances in which some the transportation department at some compounds is saying all hands on deck, go drive, go drive, go drive, go drive, right? We're simply trying to have a metric that offers relief for our already overstretched bus drivers who they need help out in the field, and this would compel the district, after hitting that particular metric of unassigned routes for that day, pull people out of the operations department, or anybody who is legally allowed to drive a school bus will basically all hands on deck, go do it. So I did put together, and thanks for Shane for the number of routes, and I do know that that's subject to change per school year, per month probably, but it's made for illustrative purposes. That it would trigger, basically 20% of routes being unassigned should trigger, hey, it's all hands on deck, I need you to drive, I need you to drive. Fleet mechanics, put that wrench down, we need you to drive kind of deal.
All right. Well, we will look at these a little deeper. And
you can sign right now if you like. I'll hang out.
And so, yeah, we'll come back to our next session with some updates on that. I appreciate you putting those together. And I appreciate everybody taking the time to come here and talk through these things.
One request, can we do a couple more hours, a longer session next time? I know obviously dependent upon availability, and I know it's budget time, so.
Yeah, well, I'll see what we can do about that too.
Yep.
All right?
All right.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Take care.